Chapter 11 of Book 3 of Rhetoric. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Jeffrey Edwards. Rhetoric by Aristotle, translated by Thomas Taylor. Chapter 11 of Book 3. Let us now show what we mean by placing a thing before the eyes, and what is to be done in order to effect this. I say then, that those words place a thing before the eyes which signify things energizing. Thus for instance to say, that a good man is a square, is metaphorical. For both a good man and a square are perfect, but it does not signify energy. But to say, possessing a flourishing acme, signifies energy. Likewise to say, but you as liberated, indicates energy. And, then with impetuous feet forth rushed the Greeks, Here the word impetuous is energy, and a metaphor. Thus too energy is every where exhibited by Homer, who speaks of inanimate things as animated, through a metaphor. But to produce energy in every thing as he does is very much applauded, as in the following instances. Back on the ground then rolled the shameless stone, and the arrow flew, and longing to strike, and Trojan and Grecian darts in earth then stood, and longed to gorge themselves with human blood, and the furious pointed dart then pierced his breast. For in all these instances, because the things are animated, they appear to energize. For to be shameless and furious, etc. are energies. But Homer has added these through metaphor from analogy. For as the stone is to Sisyphus, so is an impudent person to him who he impudently torments. Homer likewise in his celebrated images attributes to inanimate things the proper energies of such as are animated, as the afflicted deeps tumultuous mix and roar, the waves behind impel the waves before, wide rolling, foaming high, and tumbling to the shore. For he makes every thing moving and living. But energy is imitation. Metaphors, however, ought to be derived, as we have before observed, from things familiar and not obvious, just as in philosophy it is the province of a sagacious man to survey the similar in things very different from each other, as Archytas says, that an arbiter and an altar are the same thing, for he who is injured flies to both these. Or if some one should say, that an anchor and a cremaestra are the same thing, for both perform an office which is in a certain respect the same, but they differ in this, that the one is fixed above, and the other beneath. To say also that cities are anomalous is another instance of an appropriate metaphor taken from things very dissimilar. For as a superficies is said to be anomalous, because one part rises above another, so a city may be said to be anomalous, when some of the citizens in it surpass others in power. Polite diction, however, is for the most part effected through metaphor and previous deception. For the diction which not only causes us to learn something of which we were before ignorant, but also something about which we had been before deceived, is more polite and pleasant, since the mind passing from error to truth is delighted, and says to itself, how true is this which I have learnt, I was in an error. Of apothegms likewise, those are polite which imply something different from what the words at first seem to signify, as that apothegm of Stesichorus, that the grasshoppers would sing to them on the ground. Good enigmas, also, are for the same reason pleasing. For they cause us to learn something, and are metaphorical. And as Theodorus says, It is pleasing to say something new. But this is effected when what is said is paradoxical, and (as he says) is not conformable to prior opinion, but as in ridiculous assertions is slightly transformed. This likewise is capable of being effected by jests, in which the letters of the words are somewhat changed, for these pleasantly deceive the hearer. And also in verse, for something is said different from what the hearer expected. He walked along with chilblains on his feet, but the hearer expected it would have been said that he had sandals on his feet. This kind of jest, however, ought to be immediately manifest. Paragrams, or jests formed by the mutation of letters, are produced, when that is not signified which the words at first seemed to signify, as the jest of Theodorus upon Nicon the harper. For Nicon having been vexed by a certain person, Theodorus deriding him said, thrati in, which appears as if he had said, he disturbs you, thratai and deceives the hearer. For in reality he said, he makes you a Thracian. Hence this is pleasing to him who learns the true meaning of what is said. For unless the hearer apprehends that Nicon was a Thracian, the jest would not appear to be polite. Thus also to say baulei auton Persai seems at the first view to signify, Are you willing to vex him? But the true meaning is, Are you willing to make him a favourer of the Persians, and a betrayer of the Greeks? It is requisite, however, that each sense of the ambiguous word should be adapted to him of whom it is said. Another example is such as the following: The Arche of the sea was not to the Athenians the Arche of evils, for they derived advantage from it. And as Isocrates says, The Arche of the sea was to the city, i.e. to the Athenians, the Arche of evils. For in both these instances the real meaning is different from what at the first view it appears to be, and the hearer knows that what is asserted is true. For to say that Arche was Arche is to say nothing to the purpose. But this is not what is said in the above instances, nor is that denied which is asserted, but the word has another meaning. In all these instances, however, if the word is appropriately employed, whether it be a homonymous word or a metaphor, then the diction is proper, as if the name of some one were Anaxidas, and it should be said that Anaxidas is not Anaxidas, i.e. importunate. For he who says this denies the homonymous signification of the word. And this is appropriately effected if the word is always used twice. Again, O hosps, i.e. guest, you will not become more hosps than is requisite. And it is not necessary that hopes should always be hopes. For this also is foreign. The same thing also is effected in the celebrated saying of Anaxandrides, It is a beautiful thing to die prior to having done any thing deserving of death. For this is the same thing as to say, It is worthwhile to die when not deserving to die. Or, It is worthwhile to die when not deserving of death, or not doing things worthy of death. The form of diction, therefore, is the same in these instances, but in proportion as they are shorter and contain a greater opposition, in such proportion they are more elegant and pleasing. The cause, however, of this is, that we in a greater degree learn something from opposition, and that this is more rapidly effected by brevity. But it is always